think we finally did it, and I'm so excited. I have a mic. Look how professional I look. I'm going to go on my phone really fast and make sure because I will never make the mistake of talking to myself for 40 minutes again. So let's see. Am I live? All right. Let's take a minute. Yay, it's working. Okay. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to be here today on this Tuesday Night Live. I really feel that the eclipse season has passed. Oh, you guys can hear me though, right? Making sure. I closed it. Oh yeah. Oh, not only can you hear me, I sound great. Hi guys. The only thing that I'm going to have to work on is I can only somewhat see the chat from here. Um, I'm going to have to work next time on making the font bigger so I can read it from this far. But hello and welcome. And I'm so excited today that we are going to be talking about my moon book, which we were supposed to talk about last Tuesday. But the eclipse and Mercury retrograde and all of that wasn't having it. I don't know what this little sound is that continues to happen, what it's coming from. I have a lot of new devices, so there's a sound that continues. So sorry about that. Anyway, oh, hi everybody. So, today, even though it is not the new moon or the full moon, I really have been wanting to do this video for a while, and it is about my moon book. So, if you are not familiar with the moon book, I'm just going to give you a look. The back is so cute. I love the back. Um, so, the moon book is actually my creation, and I made this because it's something that I wanted and I couldn't find. And part of the reason that I wanted this even was because I had been noticing that my menstrual cycle was almost always linking up with the new moon. And I was like, wow, am I like special? And then as I started to investigate it more, I was like, oh, actually, the cycle of the woman's body is exactly mirroring the moon. And then I went a little bit deeper and I was like, wow, it's also exactly mirroring the four seasons. And then I was like, this is a little too in sync with everything here. And the other reason that I wanted to create this is I was very inspired years ago by a book by Elisa Vitti called Woman Code. And Woman Code is a great, excellent book. Like, even if you're into the moon book, Woman Code is beyond that because it goes more into like the hormonal stuff, the medical stuff, the doctor stuff, the stuff that I'm not qualified to necessarily do. But what this book proposed, and I thought it was the most brilliant idea, and it took me all of these years to figure out how to incorporate that information into my real life and not just keep it as this concept. Now, this idea that, okay, so our cycle, our daily cycle, we wake up, go to sleep, our life runs on a 24-hour cycle. And that is, yes, the sun cycle, but also when you start looking into this stuff, it's shown that the male hormone cycle is around 24 hours. Now, I personally think if they investigate it more, I think that's probably not exactly the case. I feel like there is probably something similar where men do have a similar cycle, but because they don't get periods, it's harder to monitor. That's my theory. That has not been proven. However, what has been proven is that men have this 24-hour cycle. So basically, in the morning is when the man's testosterone peaks at its highest, and then it declines throughout the day, which makes sense. If a man has to wake up and, I don't know, fight off a woolly mammoth out of the cave and then find the food for the day, it makes sense why the men's testosterone peaks at the beginning of the day. This is also, if you're in a relationship with a man, um, why men tend to, I don't know if there's an official term for it, morning wood. Okay. This is why men are very turned on in the morning because they have their highest peak of testosterone in the morning and then it dips really low, which is actually very interesting that our sexual conditioning in this world is that like intimate time is for night. But what's interesting is that that intimate time is actually the lowest that a man's testosterone could be. So what's interesting is that actually a lot of women feel rejected because a man doesn't or their man doesn't want to do anything at night and it's actually because that's actually working against their natural hormonal cycle. And this is also the reason why a lot of men do like the morning play. So enough about men. We're here to talk about women and our periods in the Moonbook. But the reason I brought that up is because men are on this 24-hour cycle of their hormones. And this is how we all live our lives and our whole life is structured around it. So the man mirrors the sun's cycle. But the women, we mirror the moon's cycle. And now a moon is on a 28-day cycle. And this very closely mirrors the average woman's cycle. So, this book, Woman Code by Elisa Vitti, presents the idea that actually you should plan your life based on the 28-day cycle and not trying to be like, I'm going to be productive 100% every single day when our body is going through a roller coaster of hormones throughout the course of a month. But we're trying to meet ourselves with the same productivity every day. And this is something that I've struggled with as someone who I have had period and menstrual issues. And I know a lot of the people here experience the same because I talk to a lot of you guys in the DMs and also because that's what my DMs are. People slide into the DMs. When someone's sliding into my DMs, I prefer that it's not like, oh, hey, what's up? Like, what are you doing? Let's hang out. No, my DMs are like, girl, my period came 2 weeks early, and I think I might have had aliens take my fetus out of my baby. I'm like, okay, you came to the right place. So yes, I love my DMs. My DMs are very me. So this, I do know that many of you guys are experiencing the same things. And also, let's go back to, so the whole theme of this video, I'm bouncing around because I don't really have too much prepared because I was preparing this. But this is a topic that I know and love and I could talk about forever. So we're going to keep going to this theme of like our physical bodies and the spiritual connections. And we are going to be getting into new moon exercises, full moon exercises, and completely breaking down the moon book. But I want to lay the foundation because with so we have men mirroring the sun, women mirroring the moon and the seasons. And then we have basically all of these weird misconceptions along the way that have come along the way. So actually, hold up. I'm going to, hold on. Look what I did. Okay. Here we are, guys. It took me a whole month to get this done. Okay. So, wow. So here we are. So here's a moon book. This is my moon book. I have the sample one, is the one that I use. And also the color was the original color that didn't end up printing so nice. So here we are, the moon book. Welcome to the moon book, hormones and horoscopes. Okay. So, I'm just going to go over some of the stuff that's in here because I really enjoy this. And this stuff is really exciting to me. So, we are dispelling the myths when it comes to menstruation. And one of the myths is that we constantly hear that, like, this idea around periods. Oh, guys, I see your comments that you love it. Thank you. Thank you. I was like, my eyes were squinting for that. I'm like, do they like it? Okay, they like it. So there is this misconception and this big belief in, and I'm going to still figure out this angle. This is not my final angle because I am going to get my other books and we're going to get to finally do those Pleiadian exercises. We're going to do the Dr. Michael Newton exercise. So I'm going to be doing those videos with this setup. So this is my first time testing it, but I am going to get a better angle so you can see the books a little bit better. But that's to come. So the thing with blood is it is a blessing, not a curse. So one, we have the wisdom of the universe inside of our DNA. And our DNA, blood is filled with DNA. Now, the DNA, they said, can hold 13.6 billion years of information on them. So we have the whole entire history of the galaxy in our blood. And why this period misconception that it's a curse on women, and I've even heard spiritual people talk about this, even spiritual people that I really love and respect, talk about how this like women getting their periods is like some type of reptilian curse or something. I don't know about that. I don't believe it. What I believe is that the information around blood has been changed, because if blood has all the information of the entire galaxy, of the entire universe, of entire creation inside of us, then it's a gift that women were able to access the blood without any harm to the body. And this is one of the things that we talk about also in this, is that men, this comes up in the Pleiadian books, the Barbara Marciniak books, that basically thousands of years ago, men stole the power of blood. By now, blood is associated with violence, with bloodshed, with all of these horrible things, trauma, death. But actually, blood was something that was sacred, and that sacred part of it had been tainted because men wanted the power of blood thousands of years ago. And of course, this is not about like, this is not about like the man cursing us or whatever. But what's also interesting is that a lot of men actually fear menstrual blood more than they fear the blood of violence. So that just goes to say that right there, okay? Um, so part of the reason also that this was considered that the myth of periods being like a curse actually comes from something called the moon lodges. So the moon lodges were basically, now we know this because we know that we get synced up with our periods with the women around us. After my discovery, which I will talk about by the end of this, my discovery of women's cycles changing with the seasons, because when we got to the first day of spring, I noticed that my period had changed. And then I put a poll on Instagram, and 250 women said that their period had also changed the same exact week that mine changed. And I realized that we also had a season change. And then I started looking back through my old menstrual calendar, because I actually do have a period tracker that I've been using for like 7 years or something like that. So I have my period history all the way going back. And I was looking on this first day of spring, how often am I menstruating around that time? And it does seem like this is what's happening. So I won't know for sure about my hypothesis until summer comes and I poll all of you guys again and we see if our cycle shifts again on the season change. But so these things are so interesting because women have been made to feel so taboo about our periods that we didn't even know that everyone's period is changing at the same time. And I also made a joke about this months ago, not realizing that it would come to life. But I was like, damn, if they really wanted to hack the timelines, they would get away with it because no women wants to talk about their period with each other. So now then I actually saw that mind shifted and then had, thankfully, this platform to ask people. And then I was like, wow, oh my goodness, all of our periods synced. So this also goes back to this moon lodge idea. So because we see how much we are syncing with each other, women in the past, in the tribal communities, and I don't even know what happened in like these Western communities with periods. That has always been my thing. When I would be in history class growing up, I'd be like, what did people do about their periods? Why don't we ever hear about that in history? And I still don't know exactly what happened with a lot of it. And I'm assuming they probably used something like the menstrual cup, because it's obviously like we don't find 10 billion pads and tampons in somewhere. So all of the women getting their period at the same time, they would go to the moon lodges and do their ceremonies, because actually the women are most psychic during their period. Now, all the women would come together and do these moon ceremonies in these moon lodges. And it became a misconception to men that women were cursed and banished, but actually they were enjoying themselves over there. So let's move on. Also, another one of the things that comes up here is the deeper meaning of PMS, which I think is really important because I am someone who my PMS came all back the last couple weeks. I had the real bad PMS this last cycle. But I used to get really, 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 really bad PMS when I was growing up. And then when they started talking about that PMDD that they started diagnosing people with, I don't believe in a lot of these diagnoses because I believe something much bigger is happening that they're not addressing. That women's hormones and our endocrine systems are completely under attack. And so are men's hormones and men's endocrine systems too, are completely under attack with the chemicals, the chemtrails, the GMOs, just to name a couple things. So I am not the biggest believer that I have some type of disorder because my PMS is bad. Okay. I'm more of the believer that something is wrong with the world, but that's also a Leo energy. Anyway, it is believed in Chinese medicine that the issues that come up during your PMS are the issues that you've been suppressing and that need to be addressed. So that's another thing that's really interesting. So like I noticed in some of my past relationships, when I had PMS, I was like, he's cheating. He's cheating. He's a liar. He's sneaking around. And guess what? Every single time by the end of the relationship, they really were cheating. So listen to that PMS girl. I'm not saying your man's cheating. I'm saying the Chinese medicine told us there's a reason for PMS. Okay, so now I've talked about this 100 times. We're going to skim through this part pretty quickly because the four stages of the moon cycle and the 4 stages of the menstruation cycle and the 4 seasons. So we have our first phase, which for the sake of this, we consider the first season to be winter, even though traditionally it was considered spring. Now, that's the important part to remember too, is that this is all cyclical. So I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's so stupid that people start with winter instead of spring for the new year. I agree with that, but also at the same time, it's a circle. So there really is no beginning and no end. And the beginning and the end are always fusing into each other. So for the sake of this, I kept the way that is normally considered in our Western society to start with winter. So winter mirrors the new moon. The new moon is dark. It's called the dark moon because you can't even see it in the sky. The winter is also the dark time of the cycle. And then the menstruation is the dark time of the cycle because that's that the actual blood is shedding. Our second phase, now this is the week after your period. This is your follicular stage. Now, all of the hormones and everything that has dropped during the period, your follicular stage is your most productive stage of your life. So, well, your life every month because your hormones are at this like point of productivity. So you have your menstruation, then your first week after period, your follicular, which is your spring. This is when all the seeds that you plant start growing. And then this also matches the waxing moon. So the waxing moon is when we see the little sliver of the moon and it's getting bigger. Wow, this looks really nice with the sun here. So it's the moon is getting bigger. Your hormones are getting bigger, girl. Okay. Next, we have our summer. So we also know that summer is the longest days of the year. The start of summer, the summer equinox, is the longest day of the year. Surprisingly, the biggest and brightest day of the year, the full moon, is also the biggest and brightest peak of the moon cycle. And our ovulation, our third part of our cycle, is also our biggest and brightest and baddest time of the month because that's when all of our hormones and pheromones and everything. And now the ovulation is the time that you can get pregnant. So this is the time that you are attractive to everyone. Your body is sending out the pheromones because you are fertile. So the way that summer is a great time for socializing and the full moon is a great time for socializing, so is your ovulation stage. And then last, we have autumn. Now, autumn, as we know, is when the trees start to die, the leaves are dying, things are falling off. And if you saw autumn for the first time, it would probably be pretty scary. You'd like, oh my God, everything's dying. What's going on? But because we've lived through autumn so many times, we've actually grown to look at those dead leaves on the ground as something beautiful. And we're like, oh my goodness, the the this is beautiful. Death is beautiful. It's a beautiful part of the process because we know that spring will come again. However, when it comes to our body, we don't have that same type of energy. Now, when it comes time to your PMS, your luteal phase, that is autumn, that is fall. And this is the autumn and fall of your uterine lining. I know, pretty crazy. So your uterine lining is actually completely mirroring what is happening in nature in fall and also mirroring the waning moon cycle. So the waning moon is when, okay, the moon was full and now it starts to become a little sliver again and it moves from brightness to dark again. And this is the same thing. So when you're in your PMS phase, not only did we learn from Chinese medicine that it's telling you something, the things that are irritating you are things that need to be addressed. It's not saying that someone is doing something bad, but shadow work and inner reflection, those things are coming up. So we need to have the same energy with ourselves that we have towards autumn and those leaves falling on the ground. Okay. So now that we're gone through the stages, let's skip ahead and go to starting a cycle in the Moonbook. Okay. So we have plenty of other things here, which we're going to go over, but let's go to starting a cycle. Oh, the sun is kind of killing us here. Okay. Okay. So, oh my goodness. Anyway, okay. So you would have your first day of your cycle and you write the date. Now, the first day of your cycle. Now, how to use the Moonbook. You're going to start a new cycle in the Moonbook when your period cycle begins. So that's why here it's all blank. Hold on. Okay, so how do I? Hold on. Let's see what happens. Move this. Ooh, yeah, there we go. Oh, wow, I'm so good at this now. Okay. Okay. So we start our cycle. So right here, say your period begins. This is the first time you're going to use your Moonbook. Now, let's say, for example, your period was to start with the full moon. So let's say the full moon came on a Monday and your period started on that Monday. So no matter what time of the month it is, you start with that because this patriarchal fake calendar is done controlling our lives, okay? We're going to go by the cycle of our body, what our body is asking us to please do. Our body already has a natural cycle. We don't need a physical calendar. I mean, we do need a physical calendar because unfortunately we have a lot of things to do. But we don't need to live our lives on that physical calendar. Just because it says it's the first day of the month and you got to pay rent and you got to pay bills, that doesn't mean that your endocrine system feels it's the first day of the month. And this is what I learned from that Elisa Vitti book is like, if you can work with your hormones, because you see, your hormones are in a dip during your menstruation. So during your menstruation is a good time, like winter, to sit with your reflections, think, plan for the year. This is the reason why when we make our New Year's resolutions on January 1st, in that early stages of winter, we're making those resolutions to plant them so that maybe in spring they can grow. So whatever day your period starts, start there. So, if it starts on a Wednesday, write it here, but then backdate it to there. So, and let me show you this in my Moonbook. This might be pretty personal because this is my real Moonbook that I really use. So, sorry if you see something that is personal. Now it's okay, crazy. So when I got my first time doing the Moonbook, it was also the first day of winter, was the first day of my period cycle. So here we go. So see, my period started here on December 21st, which was the first day of my period cycle was also the winter solstice. So then you see what we did here. So we start the cycle and then here, the first thing you want to do is you fill out your calendar and you fill out this section here. So menstruation. the sun is on its way back to us. Oh, let's okay, wow. Oh, right. So, sorry if you guys can't see this too well. So then here we have our 4 phases of our menstruation. So, menstrual, what am I releasing? Getting your period is absolutely a release, and we don't even need to explain why. So, your menstruation is what am I releasing? Your follicular stage. What do I want to accomplish this month? Because that's your springtime. What do you want? What do you want to release? What do you want to grow? Then we come down to your ovulation. Now, like I said before, your ovulation is your summer, it's your full moon time. So when you are working with what you want to do for your ovulation, this is meetings, social gatherings, and things you want to experience with other people. Um, and then for your luteal phase, your luteal is your PMS phase. And this is a good time for self care and reflection because it is like that autumn stage. So then let's just say the example of what I used here. Hopefully, there's nothing too personal. Okay. So, what I wanted to release the first time that I created this moon book and the first time I used it was I wanted to release old perceptions of myself, old ideas about money, and procrastination. What I wanted to accomplish was I wanted to finish the Harvey Weinstein series. I wanted to set up a habit tracker for my New Year's goals, and I wanted to edit my book. For my ovulation, I wanted some business opportunities and I wanted family and friends quality time to happen at that time. And then for what I wanted to focus on for my self care, I wanted to do more stretching. I wanted to wake up earlier and I wanted to just become more physically active because this was in the winter and I was getting real and cranky and blah. So, see what I did here now. So, each one of them, I highlighted it a certain color. And then let's look at another month that was maybe a little bit more active. Okay. So, see, I picked this pink color for my menstruation, and then I did the 7 days of my menstruation, that peachy color. Then purple was my follicular. So, I did the 7 days of my follicular, that purple. Then I did the ovulation brown, and I did the days of my ovulation, which ovulation is actually the shortest cycle, but for the sake of this, we just do it as a week because it makes more sense to be straightforward as opposed to like ovulation is similar to the full moon. The full moon is only on one day, but it's a whole part of the cycle. So it actually very much mirrors the new moon. I mean, the full moon. So then we have that. And then the luteal, I filled in that. So what is so crazy is every single month around my ovulation, now that I am keeping track of it, I see that that's when I have the business meetings. That's when I have the family visiting. That's when I have friends visiting. That's when I'm doing those things. So, okay. Now let's go back to here. So a nice fresh moon book. Okay, so you fill in your cycle date. And then when your period's starting now, okay, if you forget to do this when your period starts, you could still do it after. Don't worry, you don't have to like screw the whole month because you forgot to do your moon book. You could do it a couple days before your period, you could do it a couple days after. If you're a week late and you still want to do your moon book for that month, then just backdate it. That's totally fine. But most ideal is you do this on the day that your period drops. And then that's when you really get to start planning your month. You fill that in here. And then this is really important up here. So it says month and year, which is a little hard to see because it's very faint. So you can see what I do with mine is you see I put January and February, so because I didn't get my period on the first day of the month. Okay, so then you want to fill in. Can we see? Okay. So then you want to fill in your new moon date, your full moon date, the period start date, and how long your period lasts for, and what do you want to focus on this month. So those are your priorities for this moon cycle. So you have a period cycle and your moon cycle. Okay, now how do I know when the new moon is? How do I know when the full moon is? Well, that's why you've got a moon book. Because you can go right back here. We go right back to this part and look, we have our moon board for 2023 and 2024 and we can go to our month. And then this is going to tell us, okay, this is going to tell us when the full moon is, when the new moon is. It's also going to tell us, if you go back in this page, it tells you what all of the official full moon names are. So these are the names that come from the Farmer's Almanac. And that Farmer's Almanac is inspired by indigenous tribes. So basically, as we know, the indigenous tribes already knew all of this stuff and were already using the moon and the moon cycle for everything. And were basing their timing off of the moon and the natural cycles already. So actually, they had adopted a lot of names from different tribes, and then those kind of became the official ones. So, like, say, for example, the full moon that we just had on May 5th was the flower moon. So then you can come to here, and this tells you what the flower moon was, which is the spring flowers are in full abundance this month, and so are you. Use this blooming energy to blossom into your deepest desires. This is a time to express your truth and to stop holding back. So we have we can fill out all of that information. Okay, so now let's get into what happens if your period starts with the full moon. What if it starts with the new moon? Now, if your period starts with the new moon, the Moonbook is very straightforward and simple for that. Because then you just do everything exactly as it looks, okay, so we start a new cycle. We fill in our cycle desires, everything that we want to accomplish and work on and focus on this month. Then we fill out the calendar. We match up which cycle will be in on the calendar, color by color. We fill in the new moon. We flip back to the new moon section. We fill in the full moon. We flip back to the full moon section. And then we write our little intentions. Now, depending if your period starts with the full moon, then you would do this one first, which is what happened to me last time. My period cycle switched to the full moon. So normally I would do this and I would go right to the new moon page because my period was linked with the new moon. All of our cycles changed. So then it means that you're going to fill out the full moon first and then flip back and fill the new moon out 2 weeks later. So what you would do here is then the full moon date would be earlier than the new moon date. And that's fine because we're basing this on your body's schedule, not the moon, not anything. Like the moon is mirroring you. Remember that. So now this part, we're going to talk a little bit about the exercises that are available in each section. So even if you don't have a moon book, even if you don't get your period, everyone can do these exercises. The reason that I focused on all of this is because it is so important. And women have been silenced on this forever. I have had period issues my whole life. The humiliation, the embarrassment around it, the fact that doctors have been so unhelpful, the fact that when I was having issues with ovarian cysts and all of this stuff when I was 14 years old, my doctors did not take me seriously. They didn't take my cysts seriously. And then all they did was put me on birth control. They shot me with the depot shot, which is 3 months of hormones. And I know from talking to so many of you guys that you have the exact same experiences because the doctors, literally the only thing they know how to do is to medicate. And those fake hormones were so horrible. The amount of horrible things that happened because of those hormones in my body. And then I tried taking it again later on when the whole PMDD thing came out and they had Yaz and Yasmin birth control that was supposed to cure your PMDD. Psychotic thoughts that it was giving me to take all of these false hormones. So I'm not necessarily a fan of that being the treatment. And I also think that a lot of the reason why many of us women are having issues with our menstruation, and I saw a TikTok on this. I wish I could think of who the girl was. She worked in a fertility clinic and like an OBGYN. And she said actually that what she's noticed, most of the women who have PCOS, who have endometriosis, who have these uterine problems, ovarian problems, cervical problems, all of it usually comes back to them having to be too much in their masculine energy. And since they were children, they were not able to be in their feminine. And this is why the feminine aspects of their body were so dysregulated. So, of course, I do believe that there's atmospheric and food and endocrine disruptors. But I also think that some of it is coming back to the fact that a lot of us did not get to be in our feminine energy, and we needed to be so in our masculine energy that there is a hormonal disruptance, and it does cause these intense, horrible periods. So that's why this was so important to me. And even too in my meditation before I created this, because I've had so many things with my menstruation. I'm going to switch this back actually for right now. Wow. Ah. Okay, so yeah, I had so many issues with my menstruation, and literally when I was 12 years old, I remember having cramps so bad that I was on the floor crying, and I remember looking up at the sky and being like, "God, if you don't fucking help me right now, I am going to cut you off forever." I have that pattern of cutting people off. Clearly, I cut off my dad, I cut off God. I have that pattern. And so maybe it's my Scorpio rising. But basically, I was so in pain and I was like, how could this be happening? I was trying, little did I know I would learn all of these like kind of mental techniques and stuff. I remember being a teenager trying to do it, trying to use my mind to make like my period not hurt so bad. And, you know, I looked up and then the pain didn't go away when I asked God. And then I was like, you know what, God? Screw you. Don't you ever talk to me again. I swear I'll never be cool with you. Don't you talk to me. Don't you nothing me ever again, God. And then that was when I really cut off God. And that was also a big journey in my life where only just recently in the last like 3 years that I even get comfortable with the word God again. And it's only because I see it as the universe. Um, but I did feel that way. So then it was actually like about 2 or 3 years ago. I was on the floor again with these horrible cramps and I was looking up at the sky and I was like, it reminded me of this time when I was 12 years old and I was like, why the hell am I dealing with this? I've done so much work on myself. I take care of myself. Why is it that these menstrual issues like continue? And like I'm grateful that I don't have other medical things that I'm dealing with. So I'm grateful that it is not as bad as it could be. But like also it's just I know many of you guys agree. When you feel like your body is hurting you, it's a very complex place to be in because it makes you angry at your body, it makes you angry at yourself, it makes you angry at the world because you feel like basically almost like you're in a prison of pain. And I know that a lot of you guys experience this too because, I've talked to some of you about, medical stuff. And, so I just couldn't understand why I was in that situation, especially why everything I know about mind over matter, about healing your body, about all of this stuff. So I asked the Akashic Records and I was like, why? Why is this happening? And they said, because I need to figure this out to help other people. And me figuring it out is going to help me create something that will help other people. And I'm not saying I'm going to cure everyone's periods, but alone, this moon book has made me feel so good because the amount of women that have messaged me, not only saying that they enjoy the book, but also that this is the first time that they were ever excited to get their period because there was some fun activity to do that made them feel connected to themselves. So that means a lot to me because to make myself and other people actually kind of excited to have our period, I'm like, oh God, I really am doing it. It really is. I didn't think it could be, but it is because it does make me excited to have my period. So, okay, so now back to the exercises. Let's do the new moon exercise. Now, anyone can do this. Menstruating person or not, man, woman, everyone, child, anyone can do this. And so, okay, sorry this angle is so hideous. Let me see if we can get moved back here. Oh no, the sun is there. No. We're good. Sorry. Ooh, okay. So, new moon. And let's see. I hope you guys can read the words there. I'm going to read them to you anyway. So, leading up to this new moon, I have been feeling. So, I really like this part because as we're building up to the new cycle, it's good to reflect on what feelings have been coming up. So, I feel like this is something that sometimes doesn't always get mentioned when it comes to like new moon manifestation. And now, for the purpose of this book, I decided to not do a new moon and a full moon manifestation because to me, that defeats the purpose of the 28-day cycle. So what I believed was the best way to do this was to do the manifestations for the new moon, and then for the full moon to honor yourself. Now, if your period links up with the new moon, that's going to be great because you're going to be starting your 28-day cycle with your manifestations. However, if you're syncing more with the full moon, then that's where you need to be. And for your cycle, maybe your cycle is not for manifestations. Your cycle is for your gratitude and for your self-appreciation, because I'll get to that in a sec. I'll finish this so I can actually finish a full thought. Thank you guys for being always so patient in me trying to finish my thoughts. So basically, how have I been feeling leading up to this new moon? So we have our new moon date, which you find in the beginning of the Moonbook, and then our astro sign. So we also are going to find that here in the front of the new book, in the Moonbook. So our new moon. Okay, so one of the new moons that's coming up is going to be. There was actually a typo for this one. I was going to fix it, but now it's already passed. Yeah, there was a typo. So the new moon is going to be on May 19th. So May 19th, the new moon is in Taurus. So what we're going to do here, May 19th, new moon in Taurus. And then what is the themes of Taurus? Now, many of you guys already know this stuff, but I do want it still in here in the book for easy access. And now, here we go. Where are you? Okay, so then we have this part called the astro moon. And then we can go right here to Taurus and see what it says. Taurus is dealing with themes as far as drive, overcoming obstacles, determination, persistence, and sharpening. So then, whichever one of those resonate with you, you can. Sorry, I have this angle. It's pretty weird. I know I keep moving around. So we would come here, new moon, May 19th. Astro sign is Taurus. What are the themes of Taurus? Drive is the one that I like. Okay, so I'm going to pick drive or pick whichever ones you want. Now, what is the element? Now, Taurus is an earth sign. So we're going to go and do the elements. You already know that, but let's say you didn't. You could come back to the beginning of the Moonbook and look for the 4 elements. So here under earth, we see Taurus, and we have 2 things here. So on one side is some exercises that you can do for that. So those exercises could be grounding, outdoor meditation, gratitude, doing a gratitude picnic, or walking in nature. And then we can come over here and see that Taurus, the fixed or unmovable earth sign, it holds position and it symbolizes determination. So then we would come here, and those elements of earth, grounding, determination, would be the themes of that sign. And then right below, how are these themes relating to my life right now, and how can they help me achieve my goals? So for this new moon, we're dealing with Taurus, the earth sign, and it's going to be dealing with drive, determination, being grounded, being practical, all of these things. How is this relating to my life at this time? Personally, I'm trying to get back on board with my content and everything, so this is actually perfect for me. This is the energy that I'm calling in. So now that I have all of the ideas to know how this new moon is working in my favor, this is where I can do my vision for this cycle. So I'm not only just creating a vision out of my head, I'm using the astrological influences to create a vision that is aligned, the moon could actually assist me in. And then over here in this little section on the side here, the waxing moon tasks and goals. So we have the new moon, the waxing moon, the full, and then the waning. Now, I didn't want to give the waxing and the waning their own exercises because I feel like they're more transitional. So that's why I put the waxing moon with the new moon. And then this is tasks and goals. So you have a vision, and now the tasks and goals for you to work on for the rest of the month to achieve this vision. And now down here, it might be a little hard to see because of the angle of the camera. See right down here, I'll read it to you. It says, name someone aside from yourself who also benefits from your intentions. And now I think it's important when you're creating a vision, it's good to think of who's going to benefit. Now, for most of us, this might be your child, it might be your partner, it might be your parents or your family or your friends, or someone is going to benefit from your success in this vision. So, always when we're manifesting, I like to include who else is going to be helped in this process. Now, let's go to the full moon. Now, the full moon exercise, like I said, you can do this anytime with not anytime. You do it around the full moon, a couple days before, a couple days after. Same thing with any of these. If you're a couple days off, don't worry, just still do it. It still has the energy 3 days before and 3 days after. The energy is still just as intense as these moons are going to be. So now for the full moon, I like to start with, instead of how have I been feeling, what am I grateful for? And same thing, the full moon date, the full moon astro sign. So for us, the full moon was just in May 5th, and then it was in the astro sign Scorpio. So what are the themes of Scorpio? Okay, now what's the element of Scorpio? Water. What are the themes of water? And now the full moon section has an extra one, which is what is the full moon name and the themes of that? And that's what we just talked about. We went back here and saw that it's a flower moon. So this is for blossoming. This is for blossoming your ideas, things being. So look, Scorpio represents ego, self-discipline, transmutation, introspection. So with those themes, and then let's look at the water. Scorpio is dealing with intensity, emotional intensity, and transformation. So the things that were coming up during this full moon, and I know you guys felt it, was ego, transmutation, self-discipline, overcoming things, transformation, introspection, and the blossoming of new things. So this is great. Anyone can do this, any moon. I think it's really important to zero in on those elements that are astrologically charged for that. Now, on the other side, I think this is really important. So we do, I am proud of myself for, and now fill this box in. If you're doing this at home without a moon book because you don't need a moon book because you don't menstruate, then you would do the same thing. You would just maybe do a list of 7 to 10 things that you are proud of yourself for. And that's what I think is really important with the full moon, because it's your peak, it's your intensity. And I actually like to use the full moon as a recharge to redo all of the things I'm trying to grow from the from the new moon. So new moon, I set the intentions. Full moon, I check in and honor myself to make sure that I still have the drive to continue those intentions for the last 2 weeks of my cycle. So I'm proud of myself for, give a list of 7 things. I forgive myself for, this is really important, because also maybe you set an intention 2 weeks ago and you haven't worked on it yet. Well, guess what? It's time to forgive yourself for that, because don't hold on to it. Don't take it with you. So give yourself at least 3 things that you forgive yourself for. Next, I am thankful to myself for. I'm thankful to myself for. I am thankful to myself for that I kept pushing through, because I love the way this looks, and it's going to be even better once I figure out this angle. And I'm thankful to myself for that. I'm also thankful to my friend Bo, who really put in the hours. He must have put in 20 hours last night, the amount of time that he spent getting this mic onto the right settings. So thank you, Bo. And then at the bottom, our last one, like what I said with this angle might be a little hard to see. I commit to myself. So I commit to my goals. I commit to being the better version of myself. I commit to being a better version of me. So I'm proud of myself. I forgive myself. I'm thankful to myself, and I commit to myself. This is setting you on the path to honor yourself. And then here we have the waning moon priorities, because like I said, the same thing, waxing and waning moon, personally, I don't think that they need their own activity, because what do we got? Every day of our lives, we're going to do an activity? No. This is the moon book, not the transitional stages of the moon book, okay? So the waning moon priorities. So what I like to do with this is I like to reflect on the full moon, reflect on what my intentions and my goals are for the new moon, reflect here on my cycle desires, reflect on this month what I wanted to focus on, And then I come here and I go, what are my priorities for the waning moon? So as the moon is going into its last stages and I'm going into the autumn PMS luteal phase of my body, um, not always, because not everyone's linked up to the moon this way, but also energetically, that's what's happening with the moon is we're moving into that waning phase. We're moving into that autumn phase. So as we're finishing out this month of the moon cycle, what are the priorities or the most important things that you want to make sure that you focus on now? Is it going to be your self-care? Is it going to be your list of things that you wanted to do socially? Is it going to be all of the things on your list? So this is where you reflect on that. Now, here's the best part. The most fun part is, what kind of moon woman are you? So let's talk about that. When you're on that red moon cycle, that is when your period is linked with the full moon. So if your period is with the full moon, which mine recently synced to this last two, I had my period for the full moon eclipse. I was raging. I was ready to kick someone's ass. I actually got attacked by a homeless person again. We'll have to talk about that another thing. I actually did like this freaking. I had a very crazy luteal phase. Okay. So the red moon cycle is when you're linked with the full moon. So now when you're linked with the full moon, we can go also to this part earlier in the book, which is one of the most beautiful pages in the Moonbook. I'm very proud of it. Who's texting me? I feel like HRH when she's like, stop texting. Okay. So see here, white moon cycle, red moon cycle. So the white moon cycle is when you're linked with the new moon. The red moon cycle is when your period is linked with the full moon. Now, the white moon cycle is like considered the more like natural cycle because it completely mirrors like everything we've been talking about. And if your cycle completely mirrors the moon and the seasons and these things, that is like very aligned with this natural cycle. But it doesn't mean it's better or worse or anything. It's not superior. What's interesting is that this is more of like a matriarch role. If you're more linked with the full moon, now the full moon is more of a leader role, not as nurturing as much as it's holding the space, more in a warrior woman leader type way. So what's really interesting is that back in the day, majority of women were linked. Well, just like always, women are usually linked to the same period cycle. We know this because we all link. We know this because they had the period huts back in the day because all the women would link. And with this, most women were linked up to this white moon cycle. So in these tribes, the only women who would get their periods during the red moon cycle were the medicine women, the warrior women, the high priestesses, the ones who were holding the space for all the other women. So what's interesting is this white moon cycle, they have their period with the new moon, and then they have their ovulation under the full moon. That means that they can get pregnant. So when majority of the women in the tribe were able to get pregnant, that's when the other medicine women would get their period on the opposite cycle, and they would hold down the force while all the other women were able to get pregnant. And they say that our bodies actually evolved to be this way because the full moon was the brightest was the brightest night, because obviously there was no electricity then. So the moonlight was the main source of light. So when the moon is brightest at the full moon was when all of the women were able to get pregnant because they were only under the moonlight and they needed to see where everything was going. So it's really interesting. So if you find yourself in that full moon cycle, in the red moon cycle, that means that you're embodying the high priestess archetype. And that high priestess is holding the space. You're being a leader. So then that's when we come over here and it says, reflect on your cycle and how it's lining up with the moon. And what does that mean to your life? What archetype are you embodying? And then here on your reflection, what has this entire period cycle taught me? And then we also have this section here, which is your tracker. So you can track how many days your period lasted, what days you had, like of those period days, did you have cravings? Were you exhausted? Did you have cramps? Were you sad? Was there mood swings? And this is really important to keep in track of for people like me and some of the others that I've talked to and people with PCOS and things like that, because it is actually really important to know And you actually start to get into this pattern where actually these things are not going to be as disruptive to your body anymore because you're like, damn. Like if I'm starting to look at my moon book, I see that the cramps are real bad those first 3 days, which I know is obvious. But once you kind of see it in your own writing, you're like, oh, well, it's to be expected. Down here, a few words describe your cycle. So if you had a really bad, horrible cycle, write that down there, or good cycle. And then below, like I said, you probably with this angle can't see the bottom, which it says changes to diet or supplements leading up to the cycle. So if you started to take some new vitamins and you noticed that your period was better or worse, write that down there, because this is also, this moon book is going to be like possibly something really important for you medically in the future, because you're actually keeping track of your menstruation. So let's just finish out the types of women, like the types of moon woman. So the red moon, the full moon, is the high priestess. The white moon is the matriarch. That's the motherly role. You're in that mother role. It doesn't mean that you're mothering other people. It doesn't mean that you have a child. It doesn't mean that you're your mom to your boyfriend. You could be the mother to yourself or the mother to your inner child. Now let's talk about the pink moon and the purple moon cycles, because these are also very important and often forgotten. So let's go back to this part because it looks much cuter on this page. Okay. So the pink moon cycle. So see, look at the pink moon cycle. She's looking outward, like big picture. And then the purple moon cycle, she's going inward. She's crouching in. She wants to be private. So that's like a good thing. So the pink moon is when you're with the waxing moon. So the waxing moon is when the moon is getting bigger, from a little slice to the full that gets bigger. That's a good way when your period is linked with the waxing moon. That's a pink moon cycle. And that means that you're going through outward changes in your life. So sometimes if your period cycle is changing, the first thing that we think about is, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Oh my God, what happened? I'm sick. I have something wrong with me. Little did we know that the body is telling us something is changing. Something is changing in your outer world. Or if you're synced with the purple moon, which means between the full and the moon, when the moon is getting smaller, when the waning moon is happening, that means that you need to go inward, and there's inner changes that are happening. So the pink moon is going to be outward changes in your life that are affecting you, and the purple moon is going to be inner changes that are affecting your body. So this is also really important, because when I noticed that my cycle changed, now I've got no reason to think I might be pregnant. So that didn't come up for me. But when my cycle changed, I got so many messages of people being concerned that they were pregnant and that they didn't know what to do. And as far as I saw, that those people did get their periods, and we shouldn't have to go through that. Every time our cycle changes, instead of going through the turmoil of, oh my God, am I pregnant? Is this, is that? My rights as a woman, what's going to happen? Do I have to make a decision? And get ourselves sick. Also look at the changes in your life, because our body is constantly doing this. Now that since I've been keeping track of it, it's only been more and more and more proven to me. So not saying don't think you're pregnant if you might be, but don't go there immediately and get yourself nauseated and sick over a hypothetical situation, when actually our body is a lot more than just a baby maker. It's also telling us a lot about ourselves. Okay, last important thing before we go. So, your personal portal days. This is important. So, I have this in the beginning. So you do your first cycle, but right before your first cycle is a little exercise in the moon book called the About You information. I know, really original name, the About You information. But it's your personal portal dates. So your personal portal, these are really important dates for us, because if we're going to lean into the moon and its powers and all of that, then we also need to work with our own individual birth chart. And this is a very, very, very simplified thing. So when the new moon is in your sun sign, when the new moon is in your moon sign, or when the full moon is in your sun sign, or the full moon is in your moon sign, because these are hypercharged days. So it's not just a regular new moon intention. It's the new moon in your sun sign or the new moon in your moon sign. So that's why I have this little bit of this little thing here, just so we can write down those days and make note of them when we first start the moon book, so that we can remember when these days are coming up that these are important. So what's funny is that the new moon, my new moon personal portal day, is going to be on August 16th this year, which is my actual birthday. So the new moon in Leo is actually going to be on my birthday. So this is a personal portal day for me coming up. So when the new moon falls on the same sign as your sun sign, it's the most powerful placement for intention setting. Go big for this one. Set your dream big, go for the North Star, shoot for the moon this month. Now, when the new moon is in your moon sign, this represents your emotions, your intuition, and your self care. And this is an optimal time to work on your personal development. So if you have the moon coming up in your moon sign, maybe instead of trying to motivate all of these big things, it might be your time to more focus on your personal development, as opposed to where when the full moon's in your sun sign, you're going to focus a little bit more on your big dreams, your big goals. So then let's talk about, before we go, the full moon in your sun sign. So the Scorpios just had this on May 5th, and I know you guys went through it because it was also an eclipse. So I am really feeling for all my Scorpios out there, because I know they really had all of those transmutation, self-reflection, all of that stuff come up, which was really intense for everybody. I have a Scorpio rising, and it was intense for me. Now, I don't know where the rising falls into this. I should have asked Evan, Nathaniel Grimm, my astrologer friend, what happens when the moon is in your rising. I didn't know, so I didn't add it in the book. But if the full moon is in your sun sign, this is basically around your half birthday. So happy half birthday. And this is a time to start a new business venture. This is the time to do those things you were meaning to start. So always when the moon is in your sun sign, either full or new, it's a good time to do things, to start things, to make it happen. And then we have the full moon in your moon sign. So for me, this happened a couple months ago because my moon is in Libra. So that just happened in February. So now when that happens, this represents your inner feelings and your relationships. So this is a good time to, because it is about emotions, to maybe meet up with an old friend, to maybe have a conversation with someone that you've been meaning to contact for a while, and to really do that kind of emotional reflection that is needed because the moon is so connected to our emotions. Now, let's say if you have your moon book and a couple of things that come up. I forgot to do my moon book when my period changed. When my period changed, I wasn't ready because my period came like a week and a half early, which now I realized happened because of the season change. But it kind of threw me off because I didn't get to go through my full luteal phase and I was already starting another cycle. So then I ended up missing a month in my moon book. So I want to let you guys know what to do if you miss a month. Don't worry. It's fine if you miss a month. We all do it. You just jump right back in. Now, what I wanted to do to come back in, because my cycle had changed and now I was no longer aligned with like this matriarchal archetype and I've been more with this high priestess archetype, I wanted to, so what I did actually, excuse me, was I wrote on this. So before each cycle page, there's a blank page. So write whatever you want there, draw on it, do whatever you want. So what I did for that was I actually wrote all of my cycles for the last several months and how many days they lasted, because it was 29 days, 27, 29, 25, and then 24. Now 24 is a very short cycle for me. I guess it wasn't a week and a half. It felt like a week and a half emotionally. That's what happens when you skip over your luteal phase. And then I also wrote about like how I had felt so exhausted, that my period changed and that I felt like very moody and my hormones felt off. So I just kind of kept track of everything that happened up to that point and what kind of happened during that cycle and when it started, even though I didn't fill out the moon book, just so if I do need to go back and reference it, I can always be like, oh yeah, that was that horrible period that felt like 3 weeks of PMS. So, like, just to reiterate, anyone can do the full moon or new moon exercises. Those are not exclusive to people who menstruate. Working on this 28-day cycle is so important for us because our body wants to work this way, guys. Like, our body has the most energy at those times of the month. So feeling like we need to, like, I sometimes thank God for the moon book because sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I just feel like a loser. Like I haven't done anything. And then all of a sudden I look at my moon book and I'm like, oh, wait, in this 28-day cycle, I've actually accomplished a lot. I'm just right now in my luteal and about to start the menstruation. And that's why I've been feeling lazy. And I don't need to judge myself on feeling lazy on the days that my body is going through autumn or going through winter. I need to then look at the whole 28 days and say, wow, all of those intentions that I set and all of those priorities that I set, I actually accomplished 8 out of 10 of them. And I shouldn't be beating myself up because I feel exhausted because my hormones are in this place. It's like, no, actually, we're going to make our cycles right for us. I'm going to pull my screen a little closer. Hopefully everything doesn't get disconnected. Wow. Okay. So I can kind of see the comments. Oh, hi. Hi, everybody. Oh, hey, Cassie. Ashtar Command friends. How are you? Natasha, everybody. Well, thank you so much for being here, guys. Oh, I have a mouse here. Gosh, I'm so advanced. Wow. I'm so advanced to do this scrolling. Okay, sorry. I know I'm just personally enjoying this and no one sees what I'm seeing. But I'm just scrolling through the comments. Thank you for everyone for being here today and everyone who is always here supporting everyone. I know that you guys really have stuck it out for these last couple weeks with me doing these like crazy chaotic lives. And really you guys and your support is literally the reason why I didn't give up in all of those because I was so frustrated and I so wanted to. Um, and I'm not much of a crier, so I couldn't really get it out, the release that I needed. So I was just endlessly frustrated. So actually, this was took me about 28 days to get this together. If I look at my moon book, and I should have done my moon book for last month, and I would have had a better idea of exactly when I started this project and exactly when I finished. But it does seem like it did take me about a 28-day cycle to fully figure out all of this equipment and everything. So I just want to say to everyone, thank you always for your support, for being here, for your comments, for your love. Honestly, it's incredible. It makes my life. It really does. Thank you to everybody who also, as menstruating people who did get your moon book. I so appreciate it. Not only does it help me kind of fulfill that little mission that I was told about, that the reason I have horrible periods is because I'm supposed to help other people. Um, so I also love that. And also thank you for being a part of the experiment because now I have a whole hypothesis going about women's periods and I can't wait till the first day of summer. So when I put up the poll and I see if all of our periods have changed again. Also, I'm going to be announcing this week my next class. I think it's going to be on May 28th on Sunday. I think the tickets are going to be around $25. And this is going to be inspired by the Marissa Peer method of hypnosis. So I am taking the course right now to learn that style of hypnosis, which is very different than the Dolores Cannon method. So the Dolores Cannon method is a past life regression method and to contact your higher self and to deal with the subconscious mind, directly asking it questions. The Marissa Peer method is actually about reprogramming the brain and reprogramming the subconscious mind. So it's very much focused on the topic of being worthy, being lovable, letting go of limiting beliefs, releasing ourselves from the stories that have been told. And I just think, for me, when I do these classes, I like to make them actually more like personal development because I think that that's like what matters. Of course, we all want like something cool and interesting, but I really think for me, how I feel most comfortable about selling tickets is like I do really want people to get the skills that they need and even going over this Marissa Peer work and preparing this class, which I have to post about it. I'm still putting the class together. It's just like really, even going through it, it just really goes down to like all of us are dealing with different versions of not feeling good enough. So either we feel like not good enough to be loved fully, or that we don't matter, like we're not good enough to other people. And when we think about it on the surface, especially me as a Leo, I'm like, what do you mean I think I'm not enough? Yeah, right. But at the end of the day, when I really do look at this stuff, I also have struggled with those same things. And we all have one aspect of our life, I believe, that we do feel that maybe we feel not worthy enough, or we needed to work on that aspect. So for me, it does have a lot to do with relationships, because I feel pretty good about myself. But then obviously, too, in these relationships, you know, this success that I've had, which, is obviously struggling to pay my bills, but I have success in my life by my own decision and my own uh, definition of success. And I do feel successful. And I used to have these stories when I was younger, feeling like, oh, the gatekeepers aren't going to let me in, because that's how it is. When it came to my art, when it came to my opinions, when it came to my writing, it was not acknowledged as like an opinion that wanted to be heard. It was very shunned away. When I had tried to write articles for things, they're like, well, this doesn't really match our audience and things like that. And so I had always kind of had these ideas about my own success, like I had to work harder than other people. And maybe that is true, even if it's only true because I believe it. But now that I'm really being acknowledged directly to the audience, not needing a gatekeeper, not needing to go through a network or a corporation or this or that to give me permission to give my art to the world. Now that I'm doing it and I have the direct support from people, and the support is incredible, like the support is overwhelming every day of my life, and I'm so grateful for it. Seeing that success story, and this like story like that they were going to stop me or they're going to try to prevent me, seeing that that's like no longer true actually did make me see certain things in my life, like actually maybe I still do feel undeserving of love. And it was kind of like I felt like I had gotten over a lot of those things, because we get that when we're children. And as children, we're born feeling worthy, and then from that point on, that can diminish. Now, that can diminish instantly from a parent who is not good from the time you are a baby. Or maybe it diminishes when you're in school and start meeting your peers. Or maybe it diminishes as you get older and get out into the world. But, you know, thinking that and I have worked on all of those things. I've worked on everything times 10. And I also know that part of the reason why I've had to work on these things is so that I can figure them out, to explain them and help other people. But, now that kind of like idea of like, I can't be successful because they're not going to let me be successful is gone, because I'm like, wow, I could just go around them and do it myself. Now I'm like, I see other things. And that's also why I want to become more skilled at Marissa Peer's work, because I really do believe in what she talks about with reprogramming the mind. So, me teaching the class is not because I'm 100% perfect or cured or healed or anything. It's my gift is to help people understand things. And that's what I'm doing. And, in that, this stuff is also helping me, because learning this Marissa Peer method even more in depth makes me realize, like, okay, I also need that programming to know that I am deserving of all the love. I don't need to achieve greatness to feel loved, or there's nothing that we need to change. Some people feel like they need to lose weight before they can be loved. No, no. You already can be loved how you are. You're already deserving of love how you are. So I just want to leave it on that. That's what the class is going to be about. I'm really excited to share that with everyone, because I think it's really some of the most important information that maybe I've ever shared. Because no matter what, no matter how much we know about aliens, ascension, this, that, the cosmic mission. At the end of the day, if we still don't feel like we deserve the life that we want, that we deserve love, that we are good enough the way that we are, that we don't need to do anything to be lovable, we don't need to do anything to be enough, to be deserving of the life that we're dreaming of the treatment, the appreciation, the job, the family, all of that. Like, that is the most important thing. And as much as I love all the fun, cool, weird stuff, um, it doesn't really help if, people still need to escape reality to feel okay. So, with that said, I truly love you guys. I'm going to go back and read the comments after I go off live. Oh, wow. I could see from here that there's a super chat. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Shauna. That's so sweet. Shauna said that, thank you. I know it's not much, but I know you needed to buy your new equipment, and my eyes are somewhat reading it. Oh, and you gave your daughter the Moonbook. And that's what I love too, is like, I wish when I was a teenager that I would have had something like the Moonbook instead of, you know, living where I feel like I had to cut off God, you know? Like, I'm like, screw you, God, for doing this to me. Thank God that we don't need to do that for the next generation. So, thank you, everybody. I love you so much. We went a little bit late today, but this was really good, really exciting. And I love you guys so much. Thank you.